Okay, this is part two of a video where I had drawn the big guy first. The problem was, even though I thought I had it all perfectly framed, it cut him off in part over the legs. So I may show it, I may post it, I may not, but the main thing here is that I want to throw a second character in, and I want to talk about how that's going to work. What I'm thinking of is a character back in over here, and the first thing I think of with this is not so much the exact nature of the pose, but trying to get a kind of a flow going. I want an angle to it that's going to be complementary with the angle that he already has. So the big guy's got curvature down like this. So I'm thinking I will need something that's going to follow a curve like so. So no matter what I do, I want at least the orientation of the shoulders to be like that. Where I'm coming from in terms of this particular drawing, the context of it, I'm going to say, let's just imagine that you've got two characters that are in the middle of a fierce battle with some other opponent, and they both maybe taken a couple of licks, and at this point in time they're gathering themselves up and they're about to jump back into the fight. So if that's the context, then let's just work it that way. So I'm thinking this curvature, I'm looking at shoulder alignments about like this, and I'm just going to start to build in a little bit. As usual, I want to get a kind of a twisting, curving action through the torso versus hips. I'm thinking, just as with the big guy, probably a lot of foreshortening running through the character. All right, so I'm just mocking in chest line here, center line for the form. As for what the arms are doing, I have no idea yet, except that he might actually be doing one of those kind of I'm with you, buddy, sort of actions. So let me think about mocking in a hand here. So therefore you'd have a forearm. I'm just, so often is the case, I'm building in the hand where I want it first, and then I'm finding my way back to the body, as opposed to working joint by joint. I may redraw this 3 times before I'm done, but let's get the general idea in place. Take it from there. All right, so just mopping in the deltoids here. So just in terms of the graphics, I've got a nice space here to work with. There's no other angles that are like this, so it's not like it's going to really run a tangent with anything. So I'm thinking one of the legs down like this. And so of course you're thinking about a pose that makes sense, a real pose, but you're also thinking about avoiding any tangents, or what we used to call in my day coincidentals or congruencies. You just want to make sure that you get a flow happening in the overall visual, that you don't run into anything that's going to be confusing, and take it from there. Probably just extend that leg back and let it disappear behind the big guy. So what I'm thinking is, again, I'm thinking graphically, I don't want these lines to line up with any of the parts on the big guy's armor. So let's just make sure that doesn't happen. And that, in a sense, is going to dictate the location of that leg. You've got, I think, a kind of a degree of wiggle room in terms of where that leg would be and still look right, look good. So we have to take advantage of that and then make the whole thing make sense in the end. Lots of strong cross-contour curvature like so, because I want to create the feeling of looking down this form, looking down the upper body. I don't want curves going this way because they're going to fight with the actual perspective that we're dealing with. So that's a thought that I had right away about that. Okay, pulling back like this. I could have them looking over at the big guy, but what I'm thinking is probably have them in lockstep, have them looking in the same direction, like they're looking at the same adversary and they're just gauging how best to go back into the battle. So to me, the head placement now I think makes sense. Get the head a little bit too high that first time. No, I still don't like it. I still think that's the neck coming off. Tuck that down a bit more. I will try very hard not to get the back of my head into this video, but it's always a struggle. All right, so if I've got that there, yeah, you know what, even lower. Even though the head's up, I think even lower makes sense. And a little bit of a tilt to it relative to the torso also. All right, if that's where the head is, I want more foreshortening going on here, definitely. So I want to start adjusting that. I still don't know what I'm going to do with that other arm yet, but I'm just angling it back there because the angle to me makes sense. And then we'll make it work. This character's not exactly human. I have to get the eye position, the spacing of the eyes and the shaping of the eyes as they wrap around. Particularly this one as it wraps around the far side of the head, I've got to get that looking right. Smaller, larger. Let's just get a sort of general mass happening here. I got to pull that deltoid back even more. I think just get it right back there. That means angling this chest a bit more too. So I don't mind doing that. And if anything, I'll pull that center line over a little further. Yeah, that's working for me a lot better now all of a sudden. Get rid of a lot of that stuff. I think that arm, I'm pushing that arm too much. Too high up. Now that I'm seeing the whole figure coming together, it's obvious that I need to pull that deltoid down a little bit and the corresponding arm down a little bit. And then readjust where that forearm's going to be as well. Trying to get at least 3 of the fingers in a nice smooth pattern here, and then deliberately push one of them. I think in this case the baby finger off of that pattern. I'm thinking the palm down, therefore the thumb is going to be angling up. All right, I still have to figure out what to do with that other arm. So trying to keep it as an interesting arm gesturally. Building in the block of the palm. Yeah, okay. He has a discus, so I think what I'll do is I'll give him his discus. Try to get a thumb wrapped around it, and the other fingers. Just to get a feel of how that might work. Kind of gripping it. Like more of a sort of feel of him gripping it with the tips of his fingers as opposed to with the full palm on it. To me it makes more sense. Trying to map in a little bit of anatomy, but I also want to start throwing in a bit of his outfit as well. His head might be a little bit too small. I'm just going to size him up a little bit. Try to keep the same arrangements, relationships with the eyes and so on. Just pull all of this up a little bit bigger. Yeah, I think I'm liking that scaling a little bit better. I'm gonna pull that trapezius up a little higher. And into the deltoid. Start to shape this arm a little bit better. Maybe get the definition, at least get that first finger in there. Let these two basically be in lockstep with each other. And then the baby finger rising up. Bit of a gesture there. Okay, I gotta bulk up that arm a little bit, I think. And guess what? This character's got wings. So, I have to start thinking about that. But before I do that, let me just... In terms of bulking him up a bit more, I'm just pushing crotch down lower, bottom of the underside of the thigh. All of this just sizing it up a bit. And then I'll start thinking about what to do with the wing positions. Take a little bit of that away. I'll start to build in a little bit of his outfit here just to get a sense of the angle of the upper torso. The shaping of those costume detailings will help to reinforce that angle for me, and so it's nice to get them in at this point. All right, wings. Just getting a nice gesture in here, and again, I'm looking for shaping that makes sense. Obviously, it can't go to some crazy extreme that wouldn't work, but I also, within that latitude, I want to just come up with shaping that works with the overall composition, that helps with the flow of the eye over the work. All right, I'll just get the major massing of some of where I want the feathers to go, and I tend to build these out in rows, which of course reflects the real thing. Get a general sense of the line, the path of not path of action, but the line of the detailing as to where they would go. Get the angle right, and then I can go back and work that later some more. I kind of like the idea of it being a little bit disheveled at this point. If they'd been into the action, he could have been taken a little damage. So it's kind of nice to make this a bit uneven. Build a few gaps in, intentionally, into it. Oh yeah, he's got a tail too. Ooh, tail, where am I gonna put the tail? Let's see. Yeah, I kind of like swinging it over this way. That way you can see it. You can see where it's at. Wouldn't be too much of a swing to that. How about pushing it the other way instead? Kind of make a nice big S curve out of it. And don't let it get too long. All right. Form up the knee. keeping in mind, I really want this to be a bit more of a 3/4 view than it would be down here. You're almost getting a full-on version of the hips down here. It's just a little bit of a 3/4, but I want much more 3/4 here because I want to invoke a little bit of a twist in the action. Push the lower lids a little bit on these eyes, make him look a little more like he's concentrating. Okay, so the hollow of the neck here at the throat, great landmark, so it's nice to get that laid in. See where that's going to go. Build some fat old sternomastoid muscles in here just for fun. A little bit of that. Sense of where, again, the line of the hair is going to go without getting too detailed at this point, because this is just a rough. It's a really big rough, and I'm not used to drawing roughs this big. But nonetheless, it's still a rough for a piece as opposed to a finished piece. Oops, okay. Hopefully that's still in frame. All right, I'm just going to refine a little bit of this. He has a kind of a quilt pattern on this outfit, so I just want to get a little bit of that in there right now, get a sense of where I'm going to go with it. It's got a belt with a kind of a rough, sort of a T-shaped form on it. So I just want to mock that in as well for now. We'll see where that takes me later on. Finding a bit of anatomy at this point. Get that nice curve through the shin bone. And I think that's about it. I think it's about where I want it to be. Just kind of sort this detailing on the tail out. grip a little bit better, and I think we're just going to call it a wrap at this point. As roughs go, it's got about all the information that I'm looking for, and now I can go to work on a cleanup, and we'll see where it goes from there. All right, thus endeth the video.